We're in volume 5 of the Bible story. And I'm going to do this one. I'm going to go ahead and show you the painting. It's by Russell Harlan. And this is what it looks like. She's making bread. Now, some of them back then, I'm sure they do it now, they have this flat bread. And that's probably what she was making. Okay, then it says right here in the caption, during the time of a terrible famine in Israel, a poor widow shared her last loaf of bread with the prophet Elijah, and God honored her faith by keeping her jars full of oil and milk. That's what it says. Okay, part 1, story 4, the never empty barrel. It's a story that may make me cry. Okay? As Elijah was wondering what to do next, he saw a woman gathering sticks not far from the city gate. Water, he called to her. Fetch me, I pray thee, a little water in a vessel that I may drink. Looking up, the woman felt sorry for the poor stranger and hurried off to get some water for him. As she did so, she heard him call to her again. Bring me something to eat too, he said. The woman stopped, and a great sadness came over her. This is where it's going to make me cry. As the Lord thy God liveth, she said, I have not a cake, but a handful of meal in a barrel, and a little oil in a cruse. And behold, I am gathering 2 sticks that I may go in and dress it for me and my son. That we may eat it and die. Elijah could see she was telling him the truth, and he was sorry for her. He felt sure now that it was meant that this must be the widow whom God had commanded to sustain him. And the widow so poor, she had nothing in the world except a handful of meal and a little oil. In such a case, he knew something wonderful was bound to happen, and soon. Fear not, and he said kindly to the poor widow, go and do as thou hast said, but make me therefore a little cake first, and bring it to me, and after make for thee and thy son. For thus saith the Lord of Israel, the barrel of meal shall not waste, neither shall the cruse of oil fail, until the day of the Lord send rain unto the earth. It must have sound selfish of him to say, make me a cake first. But it really wasn't. For Elijah's faith is Elijah's faith is God in God was so great that to him the barrel of meal was already full and the cruse of oil overflowing. He was abundantly sure that if the poor widow trusted God and promised enough to make him a little cake first, then God would never cease to bless her in many wonderful ways. The widow decided to trust God. She took him at his word. Going to her house, she looked at the meal barrel. Just as she had told Elijah, there was only a handful of meal at the bottom of it. She scraped it out and made a little pile. Then she went to the oil jug. Tipping it up, she drained out the last drop, or she thought. After mixing the oil and the meal into a paste, she prepared to light the fire. Just then, maybe, her son came running in and said, I could hear him saying, Is that cake for me, Mama? No, darling, it is for the man of God who has come to see us. But I'm hungry. I know, dear, but he has promised me that God won't let us starve. The fire blazed up, the cake was put on it, and the hot put on the hot brick. It began to brown, and soon filled the lowly kitchen with a sweet aroma. Yeah, bread is basically a tortilla. Well, that's what I remember people when in nursery in Sunday schools. That's what they said, it was a tortilla, but it could be anything. It could have been everybody has a different version. Some say it was a tortilla or a pita bread, or it rose up and made a regular bread. I mean, it's your imagination can go any way it wants. But let me get back to the story. Suddenly there was an exciting cry from the boy. Mama, I thought you said there were no more meal in the barrel. But there is. No, darling, there can't be. I scraped the last of it out just now. But there is. There is. See, Mama, it's nice new meal, too. The widow looked at the barrel and could hardly believe her eyes. There was meal there, more than there had been for many days. She turned to the cruse of oil and tipped it up. Oh, oil flowed out. It was too wonderful. Joy filled her heart. She looked over at Elijah sitting there waiting for his bread. And it has a picture of the little boy. And some of these were made of stone. So, and the reason why I said made of stone, uh, because I'm thinking of a movie that, the purified water was supposed to be in stone. But, that's just me. Okay. Sitting there, waiting for his little cake. There was a beautiful smile on his tired face, a smile of sheer delight that God had honored his face so soon. Not only Elisha ate that night, but the widow, not only Elijah ate that night, but the widow and her son. They could not, they had not enjoyed so good a meal in many days. And because the widow did according to the saying of Elijah, it turned out that she and he and her house did eat many days, and the barrel of meal waste not. Neither did the cruse of oil fail, according to the word of the Lord, which he spake by Elijah. What a wonderful time the angels must have had pouring meal into the barrel and filling it up and filling that cruse of oil. How happy they may have been watching the surprise on the widow's face when she discovered what had happened. But that but this was not the only blessing God sent to reward her and her kindness to his servant. One day her son became very ill. Lovingly she tended him, but he became worse and worse. Feeling, fear, feeling sure he was dying, she took him in her arms, and there he breathed his last breath. Elijah, Elijah, she cried. The man of God came down from the loft where he had been living. He saw at once what had happened. Give me thy son, he said to the widow, and taking the limp body from the sobbing mother. Then he climbed up to the loft again and laid the boy on his bed. And he stretched himself upon the child 3 times, and cried unto the Lord, and said, O God, O Lord my God, I pray thee, let this child soul, and it has breath, come back in him again. And the Lord heard the voice of Elijah, and the soul, breath again, quote, of the child came unto him again, and he revived. Dumb with grief, the widow scarcely noticed Elijah as he climbed down from the loft again with the boy in his arms. Then she heard the prophet speak to her. What was that he was saying? See, thy son liveth. What? Impossible. And she rushed across the room. It was true. He was alive. He was breathing again. Oh, joy! Tears of happiness and gratitude streamed down her cheeks as she cried, By this I know that thou art a man of God, and that the word of the Lord in thy mouth is true. And then, of course, it has a picture of Elijah giving the the little boy, back to his mama. Well and happy. And that was the end of part 1, story 4. So it's break time, and we'll break, and then I'll start with the next one. See you in a minute.